up this beautiful day to you, children of God, and welcome to today's edition of God's Protectorates Confraternity's Word, titled Avoidable Multiple Deaths Will Ruin Nigeria's Health Sector, except, this sounds like a far distant topic relative to what we are always bringing on, but it has become important to come on this because of several reasons. Now, there are two major roles that Jesus Christ played while he was alive. The role of feeding the poor, providing for the poor, and the role of healing the sick. Jesus Christ healed the sick, as recorded in Mark chapter 1, verses 32 to 34, and in feeding the multitude, as recorded in Matthew 14, 13 to 21. That tells us that food producers, fruit gatherers, physicians, or let's say doctors, today called doctors, either to refer to as physicians of old, doctors and food producers are supposed to be as godlike as possible in the discharge of their responsibilities. Yes. If they are supposed to be Christ-like, that means that their activities towards their work should be that of selflessness as much as possible. But there's a problem relative to the health sector in Nigeria today. That problem not caused by doctors. I must say that first. Nigerian doctors are the best. I can stand to say that. Despite the terrible situations that they face, despite the poor working conditions, they still strive to work. We've heard about doctors who had to collapse and die in the course of duty. We remember the times that they were not adequately paid, that they were not even paid their salaries for months, and yet they kept working. And we remember those ones who have decided to stay back in Nigeria, decided not that they will not japa, despite how tough it is. And then we get to the hospitals and see the ratio of patients to doctors is nothing to write home about. Most of these doctors are overworked. They collapse, some of them collapse and die in the course of duty. We have heard about that. But today, the topic is centered around certain happenings in Nigeria's health sector that are capable of causing avoidable multiple deaths and will end up ruining Nigeria's health sector if adequate action is not taken immediately. Now, we've heard about cases where a lot of people have complained. For example, a lady recently online complained about a hospital, a government hospital she attended at Obalende in Lagos, because she was having some initial headache and all that. And later on, she was told that she was going to be operated. And while waiting for operation, she was placed on drugs. It was on drugs that amounted to a single drug amounting to about 500,000, and she had to take a lot of it. Unfortunately for her, she traveled abroad and she went for diagnosis, and it was discovered that she did not need serious treatment, that she was just given some few drugs, and she got over the whole thing. There have been so many cases that patients have told us. We heard about from patients who said when they get to hospitals, especially government hospitals and some privately owned hospitals by certain doctors, they are asked to go on several tests. At the end of the day, it is one of the first tests that they did that diagnosis will be based upon. And when we tried to find out what was causing this, we discovered that some of these hospitals, especially the government-owned hospitals, were given targets by government. Sitting governments giving targets to hospitals to generate so amount, so that the processes can be ongoing. Their salaries can be paid and other things. So doctors are forced to go through a long process because they have to generate funds for the hospital to keep functioning. They go through a long process. They tell patients to go do this test, do that test, and at the end of the day, we discovered that just to rake in money. Yes, we reliably gathered that. I had wanted to speak about this a long time, but I just kept shelving. But it has become one too many that we have had. Now, it is not the fault of the doctors. Government hospitals are supposed to give subvention, give enough money for the. In fact, in a lot of countries at the moment, there are attempts to ensure that healthcare delivery is free at all levels. And if it is not free at all levels in Nigeria yet, why should it happen that when people, ordinary Nigerians get ill or sick, they get to hospitals, they start spending unnecessary money to procure good health? It is a very sad situation. It is uncalled for. It is unwarranted. And we cannot continue to look at this and not talk about it. I say it again, it is not the fault of the doctors. Some doctors are guilty, especially those ones that run private clinics. Some of them are guilty of this same thing. They demand unnecessary amounts of money from patients. Sometimes wrong diagnosis is made. Look at the example of the lady who said that she was already on certain drugs. One drug costing about 500,000, only to travel abroad and find out that she didn't even need much. She didn't even need any surgery, as they already told her. This is sad. It's uncalled for. It's unwarranted. And of course, the medical directors of the state general hospitals, they have to wake up. They have to wake up. They shouldn't allow their jobs to be politicized. They shouldn't allow their jobs to return to money-making machines for government. They have to sit up because it is now all over. People already know that in general hospitals, these things happen. And it is all over the place. And I say it again, it is not the fault of doctors who attend to patients. They are doing their best. It is the fault of government that puts pressure on the hospitals to generate money. And that has to stop. The chief medical directors of all these hospitals should wake up and stand up to their responsibility and stand against any government that wants to use them to be milking the poor population. And of course, if this doesn't happen, faith-based organizations will stand up. Yes, the Catholic Church had a lot of hospitals in the past. They still have. The Anglican too was talking about starting something in the health sector, so that faith-based organizations can start taking over. Act conscientiously, do the right thing, and if possible, give opportunities of free medical services to people, as they did before. This is what should happen. If the government institutions, if governments at all levels cannot encourage their teaching hospitals and their general hospitals to work according to do the right thing, this is very, very sad, and it's uncalled for, and it's getting too much, and it has to be talked about. So that's just it. So if one talks about the process of healing, what patients go through to get healing, you have to understand that when somebody is sick, you need to be very, very conscious of the person's existence, conscious of the person's feeling, how the person is, whatever the person is going through at that moment. Is that the time to be telling people to go and be bringing monies that are not necessary? It's uncalled for, and it's sad. So avoidable, and these deaths are avoidable. And if care is not taken, if this trend should continue, we'll just start hearing that people just dying anyhow, because the doctors themselves are overwhelmed. They are working with their skins and their blood, and still the sector is not improving. So governments at all levels should stop this idea of putting pressures on their clinic, on their hospital, whether state hospitals or whether just state general hospitals or whether private or those that have their own private clinics. They should stop this. It is not fair. It is not fair at all. It is uncalled for. So may Almighty God help us to restore Nigeria. May Almighty God help us save Nigeria. I remain yours, Jomo Olusegun Adebambo. Bye now.